Hi, my name is Sofia Bacara and welcome to Coming Home to Her. It's so funny, every time I record a new little episode, I get so nervous. Like my heart rate right now is like doo, 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 doo. And it's so weird because I feel like I'm going on a first date or I'm doing a new job interview or something and I'm literally just talking to a camera. But it always makes me laugh, so just to make it more fluff and I guess make myself feel better about it, I am expressing my emotions. On today's episode, I really wanted to dive into the topic of loving yourself. I had a moment the other day where I was talking to my brother on the phone and I was explaining to him that I get so frustrated sometimes with making these podcast episodes just because I notice every little detail of myself that perhaps, no one else would notice, obviously, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day because I'm not going to be perfect. I'm learning, but I'm very much of a perfectionist. I am a Virgo queen, if you're into astrology. And he gave me some really wise words in the regard of being like, Sophia, who the F cares? You're having a podcast, like you're literally just talking to a camera. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be cut identically the way that you want it to be or wish it was. The only thing you can do is just learn to become better. And I was like, wow, those are some really wise words from my 21-year-old brother. So here I'm giving it a go again. I'm not gonna get frustrated and quit midway through this time. But nonetheless, it ties in with today's episode of just giving yourself some grace. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is, obviously we just had Valentine's Day this past weekend. And of course, whether you're single or in a relationship, at the end of the day, it's so important to give yourself love. And so I thought this episode, of course, would be another way of, tying it in to the holiday that we just had. I do want to show my beautiful bouquet of roses I got because they're so pretty and I keep staring at them. So 1 second. Wow, look how pretty. My boyfriend did really well with picking some flowers for me. And on Friday, I was very much in a raging PMS mode. So I would say that I perhaps was not the most wonderful person to be around, but he did cheer up my mood because he gave them to me a day earlier since we were on our little weekend getaway. In today's episode, I really want to talk about what self-love looks like in practice, not, let's say, motivationally or physically or aesthetically, but essentially how it feels emotionally. Let's start out with the topic of loving someone else. When you, per se, fall in love with someone, whether it's romantically or, loving your parents, loving your siblings, loving your friends, you accept their bad moods, them being annoying, you're understanding the things that make them insecure, and you're able to comfort them and also show up for them without, per se, stop loving them just because, they are not perfect all the time, which no one will be. This obviously goes into a huge, like a self-reflection in the regard to the way you talk with yourself. So that could be, for example, let's say you didn't work out today. You would say to yourself, oh, I'm lazy. Or you didn't eat super healthy or clean the way that you wanted to and you ate some chocolate, and then you say, oh, I'm a fat ass, or whatever it may be. Would you speak to your friends or the people that you love in your life in that way? At the end of the day, you're the most important person in your life because, as we know, everything is temporary, everything passes, people come and go, but at the end of the day in your life, you are the only person who's going to be with you the whole time. And so I almost find that learning how to love yourself and honing into that relationship is even more important than perhaps other relationships in your life in a different aspect. But nonetheless, learning how to be with yourself. Another thing I think that's super important is most people don't necessarily hate themselves, but they hate the way that they speak to themselves because at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily bring them up. I know us as women, I can speak for myself when I was younger, would look in the mirror and be like, I look so ugly today, or I look so fat. And would you say that again to a friend? If you would, then I'm a little concerned. But learning how to be kind to yourself. Building self-love is a constant relationship that you have to work at. It's nothing that's going to be perfect or nothing that is, I don't know, gonna magically happen all of a sudden in the snap of your fingers or whatever you want to say, but something that you actively need to put in effort, put in compassion, put in trust, and be loyal to yourself. You have nothing to lose. If anything, it's only gonna make you be more confident externally, not allowing, let's say the BS to come and go in your life, and also just respecting more who you are as a person. Another reminder, self-love is not something that is narcissistic or saying being obsessed with yourself, although I do think, a little self-obsession is perhaps a bit healthy. How you treat yourself when you make mistakes, how you respond to mistakes, whether you're abandoning yourself or whether you are just, let's say, sitting with yourself and being like, oof, I made a mistake and that sucked, but life goes on. Obviously, we're all going to make, let's say, 50,000 mistakes in our lives. So it's just a learning process. Let's dive into another section, which is self-esteem versus self-love. Self-esteem is, of course, how positively you evaluate yourself, and self-compassion, self-love is how kindly you treat yourself. These two things obviously correlate in different aspects. You can have a self-esteem that you are, let's say, confident in who you are, you're confident in your decisions, but your self-love can mean how do you treat yourself when things perhaps don't go the way that you wish they would have. Are you going to beat yourself up and, let's say, starve yourself because you didn't go to the gym for one day and you ate chocolate? I hope not. And so reminding yourself that it's okay and no one cares and you shouldn't care either. Psychology research shows people with higher self-compassion have lower anxiety and handle setbacks better. Also, of course, our brain can be wired in different aspects, and I think we also remember negative things more than we remember positive things. I mean, just speaking on my behalf, when I look back at the last 7 years of my life, obviously I can say wow, I'm really proud of myself, it's really cool and whatever. But I also think that I tend to nitpick, or let's say, I wouldn't call them necessarily my mistakes, but my, let's say, not most proud moments tend to resurface more than all of the wonderful things that I have achieved. This, of course, is just a sense of practice. How do I rewire my brain to remember all the good things I've done, all the good things I do for myself? Yeah, okay, shit happens. And sometimes we just can't avoid it. And if it happens, whatever, we move on, we flip the page. And another huge thing is remembering that the people who love you, your friends, your family, let's say your romantic relationships, or I don't know, the people in your daily life who show up for you as friends and, good relationships, they accept you just like you accept them. And that is such an important and crucial, I would say, pinpoint, at least for myself to remember as well, that I think everyone can benefit from, is that they accept you for being imperfect, just like you accept them. Another thing with self-love that, I was very inspired by from something I read was showing up for yourself just like someone else that you have a relationship with shows up for you. That could mean making small promises to yourself, like, I'm going to go to the gym this week at least twice, or I want to ensure that, I don't know, I'm going to go for a walk, whatever it may be. I'm trying to come up with little examples that I can't really come up with right now. But nonetheless, staying true to the things that you promised yourself. Just like you date people or, search for someone romantically, things that you look for is the way that they show up for you. If they are true to their words, if they are, a good friend or son or daughter or whatever it may be to their family, and reminding yourself to do so for yourself. So what did I do recently? For example, with the podcast, I told myself that I was going to launch this by the end of 2025. I did push it back perhaps 2 months just because I was riddling with anxiety and very uncomfortable to put myself out on the internet. But nonetheless, I made a promise to myself. And I followed through with my promise at the end of the day, although it was the 31st of December. Never too late. It was still 2025. Just doing these small things for yourself of showing up. I'm right now trying to be better about my food. I don't like cooking, so I tend to just grab food that's really easy and on the go. And something that I've noticed perhaps doesn't make me feel so good. Now I'm really trying to make an effort to, let's say, eat more whole foods, more healthy, and ensure that I continue to do my, let's say, daily exercise, whether I'm going to a workout class, to the gym, or going on a walk, because that's what feels good to me and that's how I love myself. Self-love is also incredibly important in the relationships you have in your life. For example, showing yourself self-love by not chasing inconsistent people, showing yourself love by not overthinking everything that you have said or done, which is also a very natural part of being in your 20s and in your life as you get older, I'm sure. Also, not pleasing people and creating boundaries of self-respect that feel good to you and not bending over backwards to make someone else feel good. Also, another huge thing is choosing peace over validation. You don't need to prove that you are whatever you want to prove because you love and respect yourself. You don't need to show the people around you that you fit into their little, let's say, invisible circle because they think they're amazing. You need to love yourself and be able to hold peace with the fact that you are not everyone's cup of tea and that you don't necessarily need to fit into this bubble because you're cool if you do so. At the end of the day, people who judge people like that are not cool. So I don't think you necessarily want to be friends with people like that. And loving yourself is often something that's really quiet. You don't need to, let's say, go out of your way and tell people, I love myself. No. Sitting with yourself and just being at peace with the fact that you are secure in who you are. Another great question is, if you think about your inner voice, is that someone that you would be friends with? And treating yourself like your best friend. Self-love also can translate into self-confidence in many ways. That's for another episode. But nonetheless, just remembering these small things, doing things that you love, doing things that make you feel good, saying nice things to yourself. Obviously, we've all heard about, affirmations and mantras, etc. If that works for you, amazing. If it doesn't, amazing. I remember, who told me this? Someone told me not too long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, that they had wished that they would have been so much kinder to themselves when they were in their youth and in their early 20s, because as they got older, they realized how beautiful they looked, how, incredible their body was, or whatever it may be, but just a small reminder that if you're putting yourself down right now and being a bully to yourself, you're probably going to continue to do that throughout your life. And that sounds pretty miserable. Love yourself the way that you would love someone else. Just like when you get into a relationship, you learn how to love someone else, learn how to love yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to, do things that perhaps you're going to be like, why did I do that? Or, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. But that's also just kind of a part of life, and we need to be more forgiving to ourselves. I love that self-love was put into the form of a forever evolving relationship with yourself. It's just another relationship that you are maintaining in your life. Since earlier I did mention that we just had Valentine's Day over the past weekend, I thought it would be really fun to dive into small little points on loving yourself while you're single, and also how to love yourself or loving yourself while you're in a relationship. I'm going to look at my little notes here because I can't remember all of this. Just a little intermediate pause. I need to put my hair up, so 1 second. Okay, we're back. Sometimes my hair really irritates me and it's just in the way, so just going to clip it up. But anyways, diving back into loving yourself when you're single. I thought this was super wonderful to hear because I read something last week that really also kind of inspired me and made me reflect a lot during the times that I was single. And loving yourself while you're single is also pretty difficult, I have to say. I mean, I don't think it ever gets easy in life, maybe when you are much older, but we're still girls in our 20s or 30s, so we're forever evolving as of now. But to start off, you learn a different part of self-love when you're single. Single self-love equals building a relationship with yourself. And that can include regulating emotions alone. How do you react? Oh my God, I can't speak. How do you react to things that are going on around you, positively or negatively, and things that, of course, may affect you? Are you going to scream into a pillow? Are you going to rage at the person who made you feel upset? Learning how to regulate your emotions alone is also pretty big, I would say, like growing up learning process. Creating routines. Enjoying your own company. This is a big one. I personally would say that I'm a person, I love to be alone. I obviously love my partner and I love my friends, but it also is very much important for me to have alone time. And that was a super difficult thing for me to learn, I would say initially, just because when I did move from Hawaii to Denmark, I was constantly with people in Hawaii 24/7. And then all of a sudden I was alone. And it was a really weird feeling, very uncomfortable. Learning how to enjoy your own company, I think is actually so cool. I mean, going to a restaurant by yourself, which is a huge social anxiety barrier, I have to say, from myself and from my friends and from other podcasters I listen to and whatever influencers. It's a super scary thing to do. Being able to take yourself on a date, quote unquote, be able to sit at a bar by yourself alone is so awkward in our heads. And maybe to other people around you, but at the end of the day, it's really not. If anything, I think it's such a cool, empowering thing to do. And just learning to do these small things with yourself and genuinely enjoying your own company is amazing. Learning about what you actually like. I also think that's awesome. And becoming your own safe space. Being single teaches you how to be with yourself. Of course, let's say we also deal with struggles in this sense. And it could be comparison, comparing your single life to a friend or someone close to you who is in a relationship. At the end of the day, you will never have the same relationship that they do with their partner. And hopefully you find someone who, matches you in the way that you want to be loved. Hence, the way you want to be loved. And now diving into loving yourself in a relationship. A relationship doesn't create self-love, it reveals it. And I honestly can totally resonate with that. Self-love in a relationship looks like, for example, keeping your own identity, as I spoke about in my last episode of doing long distance. That is a huge importance for myself. Also, keeping your friendships and your hobbies, that is your identity. That's who you are as a person. You're not going to bend backwards just to kind of be molded into this person that you are romantically dating. Not shrinking to avoid conflict. I think that's actually a really good one. Not bending over backwards, again, to ensure that you aren't causing someone else turmoil or creating conflict in your relationship. You are showing up for the things that you stand for. Also, expressing your needs. That's a big one. Telling them what you need more of. Perhaps they're doing something that you don't necessarily like. And just staying true to yourself, of being honest about the things that, you're happy with and perhaps the things that are also bothering you. Another key line, okay, Cha is giving us the final little words and words of wisdom that we're going to take off from this podcast. But a relationship shows whether you love yourself or whether you just feel loved. Being single teaches self-soothing. Being in a relationship teaches self-respect. The goal isn't to need no one. It's to not lose yourself when you love someone. And to our reminders, loving yourself isn't a perfect version of you. It's learning to stay with yourself, especially on the days you feel hardest to love. I found that quote from a girl off of TikTok the other week, and I completely resonated with it, so I thought it would be wonderful to share. It's not a destination. And you're never going to be perfect, so just accept that. Like I have to accept that too with this little passion project hobby of mine, even though But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. Bye.